In this powerful video, we dive into a message of hope and restoration that will speak directly to your heart. Life often feels overwhelming, filled with loss, setbacks, and moments where everything seems to fall apart. But what if I told you that there's a deeper plan unfolding, one that's far greater than your struggles? In the story of Naomi and Ruth, we discover how faith has the power to transform pain into purpose, loss into redemption, and disappointment into the greatest blessings. If you've ever felt like giving up, or if you're questioning whether God is truly in control, this video will show you how trust in His perfect timing can change everything. Stay with us to the end, because the powerful truth you need to hear today could be the very thing that restores your faith and gives you the courage to keep moving forward. Before we start, I'd appreciate your support. If you like the video, please subscribe and hit the bell to stay updated on future lessons from God. As C.S. Lewis once so poignantly reminded us, a roadblock is never the end of the journey. It is, more often than not, the unexpected turn that leads us to the path we were meant to travel all along. You may feel as though you've lost everything, too much time, too many opportunities, or that you've fallen too far behind. The weight of these thoughts can be suffocating, making it seem like your dreams are forever out of reach. But take heart, because the God we serve doesn't just redeem time, He completely redefines it. He takes what we perceive as wasted moments and transforms them into the most beautiful, intricate parts of our lives. In this video, you're about to uncover this profound truth. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be for God to work in you and through you, to accomplish something beyond your wildest imagination. We live in a world that is fixated on time and consumed by the relentless pressure of deadlines, expectations, and milestones. Society has created a blueprint for success that many feel obligated to follow. Graduate by 22, marry by 30, buy a house by 35, retire by 65. These unspoken rules, though deeply ingrained, often lead us to measure our worth based on the clock, shaping both our aspirations and our deepest disappointments. When life doesn't follow this rigid timeline, we feel as though we've fallen behind, like we've missed our chance, like we're running out of time. The anxiety that comes with this mindset is paralyzing, making it easy to believe that our future is already decided and the window of opportunity has closed. But here's the truth. God doesn't abide by human timelines. He is not bound by age, circumstances, or society's expectations. He does not rush or delay according to the ticking of a clock. His plans unfold in their perfect time, a time that transcends human comprehension. At times, this doesn't seem to make sense to us. It seems impossible, especially when we compare ourselves to others who seem to have it all figured out. Consider J.K. Rowling, for instance. At 31, she was a struggling single mother, facing rejection after rejection from publishers who told her book was not good enough. In those moments, it must have felt as though time was slipping away. But fast forward to today, and Rowling is one of the best-selling authors in history, her success unimaginable to those who doubted her. Or think of Colonel Sanders, the founder of KFC, who didn't taste true success until he was in his 60s. If either of them had given up, believing that time had run out for them, the world would have missed out on their extraordinary impact. Man's timelines do not define the scope of God's power. Remember Sarah, who was told by society that she was too old to have a child. She had long since accepted that motherhood was no longer an option for her. Even when God promised her and Abraham a son, Sarah laughed at the very idea, seeing it as impossible. But the limitations of human understanding are no match for the promises of God. At 90 years old, Sarah gave birth to Isaac, a living testament that God's timing defies the boundaries of biology, age, and society's expectations. His plans are not bound by the limitations that hold us captive. Many of us have experienced a Sarah moment in our lives. A time when we find ourselves laughing in disbelief at the possibility of something good happening, thinking, it's too late for me. We look at the years that have passed, and the opportunities missed, and we assume that because things haven't happened yet, they never will. But let me remind you, God's delays are not His denials. What seems impossible to us is effortless for Him. As C.S. Lewis so beautifully put it, a clock only governs those who fear it. Time itself bows to those who refuse to be ruled by it. How often do we allow the pressure of time to dictate the course of our faith? We start to believe that because we haven't reached a certain milestone by the right age, we've failed. But what if God is simply preparing us for something far greater than we could have ever imagined? Maybe you've been waiting for a breakthrough, a job, a spouse, or a financial blessing, all the while watching others move ahead while you seem stuck? What if, just perhaps, God is not withholding these things from you, but rather preparing you for them in ways you can't see? What if this time of waiting is a season of protection, alignment, or divine positioning? What feels like wasted time is, in reality, part of God's perfect plan for your life. We've all had moments where we look back and wonder, how did I waste so much time? Perhaps you lost years in a toxic relationship, struggled with addiction, or wandered, unsure of your purpose. Maybe you poured your heart into a dream, a business, or a friendship, only to see it all fall apart. And in the aftermath, the question lingers, how do I get that time back? But here's the truth you must hold on to. Nothing, absolutely nothing, is wasted in the hands of God. Life rarely unfolds the way we expect. We envision a smooth, straight road, but God often leads us down winding paths and through detours we never would have chosen for ourselves. We may face experiences we never anticipated, and challenges we never wanted. But what if those detours weren't wasted time? What if they were necessary parts of the journey? What if the very thing you've been calling a setback is, in fact, a divine setup? Trust that every step you've taken, no matter how uncertain or painful, has brought you closer to the extraordinary future that God has prepared for you. Imagine this. You're racing to catch the 9 a.m. bus. Every second matters, and yet, just as you reach the bus stop, life throws one challenge after another in your path. Your keys slip from your hand and fall into the gutter. Your coffee spills, staining your favorite shirt. Traffic is a nightmare, and it seems like the universe is conspiring against you. By the time you reach the stop, you watch in helpless frustration as the bus pulls away without you. Anger builds up inside you as you sit down, scrolling aimlessly on your phone, feeling as though time has been stolen from you. The clock ticks, and you can't shake the sense that you've missed your chance. But then, just when you've settled into the feeling of defeat, someone else walks up to the stop. You begin a conversation, and it feels like it's more than just a random encounter. That person, could they be the very person God intended for you to meet? Perhaps a future business partner, a lifelong friend, or even the love of your life. The time you thought was lost and wasted was divinely orchestrated. This truth is beautifully exemplified in the story of Joseph, whose life offers one of the most profound examples of divine timing and purpose. Joseph, as a young man, had a dream that one day he would rise to a place of great leadership, but instead of walking into that promise smoothly, his journey was marked by unimaginable trials. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison, his life seemed to be nothing but a series of wasted years. From the outside, it appeared that every step forward was met with 2 steps backward, and he was far from the dream he had envisioned. But what Joseph couldn't understand at the time was that each painful setback was not a delay, but a piece of divine preparation. The time he spent in slavery wasn't wasted. It humbled him, teaching him the invaluable lesson of servanthood. The years in prison weren't wasted. They developed his wisdom and resilience, preparing him for the future God had planned for him. And in the fullness of God's timing, Joseph was elevated from the lowest of lows to the highest position in Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. What the world saw as wasted time was, in reality, divine preparation for his destiny. C.S. Lewis once said, "A season of waiting is not a season of wasting, but a season of becoming." How often do we sit in frustration, believing that time has slipped through our fingers, only to realize later that God was using that very time to prepare us for something far greater than we could have imagined? Take a moment to reflect on your own life. The years you thought were lost, what did they teach you? Did they mold you into someone stronger, wiser, more compassionate? Did they open your eyes to what truly matters? Maybe you lost a relationship, and at the time, it felt like a devastating waste of time. But what if that heartbreak saved you from something that wasn't meant for you? What if it was the very thing that redirected you towards something better, something more fulfilling? Or perhaps you spent years battling addiction, feeling trapped in a cycle of defeat. But what if those struggles are precisely what will one day empower you to help someone else who feels lost and hopeless? We must remember, however, that God's ability to restore and redeem goes beyond simply bringing back what was lost. He can also accelerate the course of your life in ways you never thought possible. What took others years to achieve, God can do for you in mere moments. The doors that seemed firmly closed, locked tight, can suddenly swing wide open. God isn't just a restorer of time. He is a God of divine acceleration. When you trust His timing, He will move mountains on your behalf, propelling you forward with a speed and momentum that surpasses human understanding. There are times in life when everything feels like it's at a standstill. The weight of waiting becomes unbearable, and the uncertainty can be overwhelming. You may feel like you're 10, 20, or even 30 years behind, wondering if the dreams you once held so tightly will ever come true. But here's the truth. In an instant, God can shift the trajectory of your life. He can bring the right people into your path, unlock doors you never thought possible, and change the circumstances that seem to have held you captive for years. The waiting may be difficult, but it's never without purpose. And at the right moment, God's divine acceleration will come, propelling you forward in ways that will leave you in awe. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Take Job, for example. His life is one of the clearest demonstrations of God's ability to restore what seems lost forever. Job had everything: wealth, family, health, a thriving life filled with blessings. But in the blink of an eye, everything was stripped away. His wealth was gone. His family was taken from him. His health failed him. It must have felt like his world had come crashing down, like he was lost in a pit with no way out. The days must have stretched on endlessly as Job faced the most painful of losses. Yet, through it all, he never lost his faith. He questioned, he mourned, but he didn't turn away from God. And in God's perfect timing, Job's restoration came. What seemed like complete devastation was a divine setup for an even greater blessing. God not only restored Job's fortunes but gave him twice as much as he had before. What looked like an irreversible setback was, in fact, a season of preparation for a greater breakthrough. That is the power of divine acceleration, the ability of God to restore and elevate in ways we can't fully comprehend. Even in our world today, we see this truth play out. Consider a family whose home is destroyed by a wildfire, decades of hard work gone in an instant. The grief would be overwhelming. The devastation was unimaginable. Yet, within the ashes of loss, there lies the potential for a greater miracle. In California, after devastating fires ravaged entire communities, one family stood in the ruins of their home, worshiping. They didn't worship because they were unaffected by their loss, but because they believed in the power of restoration. Within months, doors opened, resources flowed, and what had taken them 30 years to build was restored in far less time. God took what seemed to be a tragic end and turned it into an incredible new beginning. You see, God's timing is never bound by the clock or the calendar. It's not governed by our limited understanding of time. As C.S. Lewis wisely said, progress is not measured by how fast you move, but by how suddenly everything changes when the moment is right. The waiting may seem agonizing, but in God's economy, moments of seemingly endless delay can culminate in swift, powerful transformation. The moment you least expect it, everything can shift. What feels like a season of stagnation could be the very moment God is positioning you for a breakthrough. Perhaps you're in a season right now where it feels like nothing is happening. You've prayed, you've hoped, but it seems like God is silent. Your dreams feel far away, and you wonder if they'll ever come true. But just because things are moving slowly doesn't mean they always will. Your waiting is not wasted. God is not indifferent to your struggle. He's using this time to prepare you, to strengthen you, to shape you for what's to come. When the moment of acceleration comes, you will see that every delay has a divine purpose. But here's a profound truth. Your soul is timeless. While God is capable of accelerating your life and restoring what was lost, none of that external success will matter if your soul is not in the right place. We live in a world that places so much value on external achievements, on the house we own, the job we hold, the relationships we have, and the recognition we receive. Society tells us that our worth is defined by these things, and it can feel like a race to check off the boxes, to meet the milestones, to prove that we've arrived. But in the end, none of that matters. What truly matters is not what you have or how quickly you achieve it. What matters is the condition of your soul. God is not focused on what you acquire. He is focused on who you are becoming. The house, the career, the accolades, those things are temporary. But the development of your character, your faith, your inner peace, and your love for others, that's eternal. Your soul is not bound by time, age, or societal expectations. While the world rushes to meet deadlines, God works on eternal development. His goal for you is not just to succeed in this life, but to become the person He created you to be, a person whose heart beats in alignment with His. When we shift our focus from external accomplishments to internal growth, we begin to see that every season of waiting, every moment of delay, and every setback has the potential to lead us to something greater. A deeper relationship with God, a stronger character, and a soul that is more in tune with His divine purpose. Jesus' words in Mark 8 verse 36 resonate deeply. What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? This timeless question holds an immense truth. It challenges us to think beyond the fleeting rewards of this world and focus on what truly sustains us. We often spend our lives pursuing success as defined by society. Money, fame, achievements. And yet, when we attain these things, we can still find ourselves feeling hollow, disconnected from the essence of who we are. Take a moment to reflect. What good is it to have a wealth of material possessions if your heart is empty? What does it matter if the world admires you if you've lost your inner peace along the way? All the things we chase, all the accolades we receive, cannot define us. What defines us is the depth of our character, our unwavering faith, and the state of our soul. These are the treasures that no one can take away. In today's society, success is often measured by how quickly we can achieve our goals. One person spends decades working toward financial stability, paying off a mortgage, while another might make a fortune in the blink of an eye through the rise of social media. But the speed with which someone reaches a milestone is not the measure of success in God's eyes. God does not operate within the framework of worldly timelines. It's not about how quickly we reach a goal, but about how we walk with Him throughout our lives. Some of the most content people in the world have little by society's standards, while some of the wealthiest individuals can feel incredibly empty inside. Why is that? Because external accomplishments can never substitute the inner peace that comes from a relationship with God. As C.S. Lewis wisely stated, "A man who gathers riches without wisdom only collects burdens disguised as treasures." This insight helps us recognize that the pursuit of worldly success can sometimes lead to greater burdens. It's easy to look around and compare ourselves to others, friends buying homes, advancing in their careers, building families, and feel like we're falling behind. But the truth is, we often don't see the full picture of their lives. We don't know their internal struggles, their heartaches, or the sacrifices they've made along the way. The truth is that we are all on unique paths, and the world's timeline of success doesn't define the state of our hearts or our spiritual growth. God's purpose for us is not to check off boxes on some external list of achievements, but to walk faithfully with Him, growing in love, wisdom, and grace. The problem arises when we allow the pressure of societal expectations to distract us from appreciating the journey we're already on. We focus so much on the things we lack, the milestones we've yet to reach, that we fail to recognize the blessings God is pouring into our lives right now. We've discussed how God can restore lost time, accelerate our journey, and refocus our priorities. But all of this is only possible when we have faith. Faith is the key. Faith allows us to see beyond the immediate frustration, beyond the setbacks and disappointments, and trust that God is still in control. Faith enables us to believe that even when life doesn't go according to our plans, there is a higher plan at work, a plan for our good and His glory. Without faith, we risk missing the very blessings we've been praying for, not because they aren't there, but because we're too consumed by our circumstances to see them. Two people can walk through the same storm, experiencing the same tragedy or hardship, and yet emerge on opposite sides, one filled with bitterness, the other with resilience. What makes the difference? It's the perspective shaped by faith. Faith alters the way we interpret our circumstances. It gives us the strength to persevere, to find meaning even in moments of suffering, and to trust that God is using every moment to refine us. Consider the aftermath of the California wildfires. Imagine dedicating 30 years to building your dream home, only for it to be destroyed in an instant by a devastating blaze. Many would crumble under the weight of that loss, overwhelmed by grief and despair. But there were others who, though they felt the pain deeply, stood in the ashes of their homes and worshipped. They didn't worship because they were unaffected by the loss. They worshipped because their faith assured them that if God allowed something to be taken, He had the power to restore it. This is the power of faith, to see beyond the immediate devastation and trust that God's restoration is on the horizon. Your life, your journey, your soul, these are eternal. The world may measure success by what you own or how quickly you achieve your dreams, but God measures success by who you become through the process. Keep your heart focused on what truly matters. Growing in faith, strengthening your character, and trusting that in God's perfect timing, everything will fall into place. Faith, at its core, isn't about denying the reality of loss and hardship, but trusting that even amid pain, God is still writing our story. The story of Naomi in the book of Ruth is a perfect example of this kind of faith. Naomi experienced unimaginable loss: her husband, her 2 sons, and her sense of security. She left Bethlehem full, but returned empty, believing that God had abandoned her. In her grief, she even insisted that people call her Mara, meaning bitter, Ruth 1 verse 20. She could only see the end of her story, convinced that her loss was permanent. But while Naomi struggled with faith, Ruth held on to hers. Ruth, despite the uncertainty of the future, chose to stay with Naomi, not returning to her old life, but walking by faith into the unknown. Because of Ruth's unwavering faith, God led her to Boaz, a man who would ultimately redeem their family line. What Naomi saw as the end of her story was, in fact, only the middle. What she thought was a complete loss was God working behind the scenes to bring about redemption. Through Ruth's faithfulness, Naomi's family name was restored, and Naomi became part of the lineage that led to King David, and ultimately, to Jesus. As C.S. Lewis so wisely put it, the person who believes they have lost everything is blind to what God is still preparing. How many times do we let our disappointment or grief cause us to miss what God is doing? How often do we give up before we witness the restoration God has in store for us? If you are still watching this video, and find these lessons useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. The danger of losing faith is that it blinds us to what God is doing in the present moment. It's like a man sitting among the ashes of his burned-down home, so fixated on his loss that he doesn't notice the people who have come to help him rebuild. He overlooks the opportunities being placed in front of him, consumed with the pain of what's gone. This happens all too often in life. We become so focused on our losses, whether it's relationships, dreams, or material possessions, that we fail to see the new opportunities God is bringing into our lives. Faith doesn't just help us endure loss, it helps us recognize when restoration arrives, even amid our grief. One of the greatest struggles we face when it comes to faith is impatience. We want immediate results. We want to see the restoration now. But faith requires not only trusting that God can restore us, but also trusting in His timing. If you're feeling like you've been waiting for too long, remember that God is not just working on your situation, He is working on you. The restoration you are waiting for may not be delayed. It may simply be waiting for you to be ready for it. Life doesn't always go according to our plans, and often, we feel like we've wasted years because of mistakes, setbacks, or hardships. But the truth is, God's timing is never wrong. He can redeem and restore what has been lost, and He can accelerate the process. So, don't worry. You are not behind. You are exactly where God wants you to be. If you are feeling discouraged or like your restoration is never coming, I encourage you to trust God's process. His plans for you are still unfolding, and in His perfect time, you will see the restoration you've been waiting for. Keep the faith, knowing that He is working all things together for your good. As we wrap up today's message, I hope you're encouraged by the power of faith, patience, and trust in God's perfect timing. From Naomi and Ruth's story to the lessons about restoration and the importance of focusing on your soul rather than external achievements, there's so much for us to reflect on. So, what have you learned so far? What's one thing you'll take away from today and bring into practice in your own life? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave your comment, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring content. Stay blessed, and I'll see you in the next one.